Good evening, everyone. Welcome back again to Module 2 of Quantum Living. I'm so glad you joined us again. For those of you, as a reminder, if you weren't with us last week, I do ask that you make sure that you signed in and I have your email address because you will be getting emails from me throughout the week that have little video reminders that we watch in between class as part of your homeworks and just some points to ponder in between, just to touch base with you. That email, if you reply to it, comes directly to me. So feel free, if there are any questions you have along the way, to simply hit reply when you get that email. If anyone was here from last week and didn't get the email, please see Patty, who's sitting in the back of the room, and take a look at your email address and let us know, because I am happy to resend any email that went out from last week. Did you thinking you didn't get an email from me? And I always remind people to check your spam, because it might actually be in your spam folder until you're not used to getting a direct email from me. So the only thing as a kind of a shared agreement is to silence your cell phones. Now is a good time, and to remember that we're going to make this agreement with one another. I'll get the verbal and the handshake agreement about just staying present and being open to this process, to not judge it. We know there are many tools in our spiritual community, and quantum living is just one shadow work tool. So we ask you to be open, because we all come from different paths, or there might be concepts that you might actually have a guttural or a feeling of, I don't think that sounds right. So depending on how we've been domesticated with belief systems, just let that resonate and sit with it. So we just ask you to kind of recognize in your body if something doesn't ring as truthful, but then not to get stuck, like just put a pin on it and see if you can resonate with that does, and then we get to explore those feelings of, why did she say something that just struck me to the core of my being as, I don't like that, or that's not me, or anything like that. That's actually what we are exploring together as we work through raising not only our emotional intelligence, but our spiritual intelligence and our awareness. And so we'll talk a little bit, for those of you last week, and as a reminder, we did have an intro class, but the most important thing about quantum living is that this is a self-exploratory process. It is not therapy, although it is steep in sciences and neuroscience and psychology and all of the different areas that help you get through that heart coherence and have an understanding of laying new neural pathways. That's kind of what we're trying to overcome. Beliefs, which are simply thoughts that you continue to keep thinking, is asking yourself the curiosity of, do those beliefs serve me now? Is it a possibility that I may need to lay new neural pathways so I don't react or in ways that no longer serve me? So it's about us taking back our control. So just stay focused on the topic. There'll be some sharing along the way, and to keep in mind, we want you to take care of yourself. There are 2 restrooms in the hall, and if you go through this door, there's a drinking fountain. There's little cups. Help yourself, or get water in your water containers. But we will take a break close to the top of the hour. But if you need to get up, you need to stretch, you're not feeling well, you will not distract me. Just take care and do what you need to do. That'll be part of our agreement, that you will be conscious to your own being here. And that's super important, because as we tap into these topics and we open our hearts to explore ways that we have been programmed maybe without even knowing about it, and we start to actually be comfortable and create a sacred space to actually explore the tip of that iceberg that might lead to a deeper root topic that might be sensitive to you. So I really just say, give yourself that compassion. Take care of yourself. And Patty reminded me, poor Tammy went out to the car last week and then was stuck in the parking lot because we close the gates and we lock it at 7:30 just so that we don't have people coming into the courtyards. Usually the other side is locked up. So please know if you go out the gate, just let Patty know, or just make sure you prop something in if you need to run out to your car, come back in. We don't want anybody stuck outside if that's the case. Worst case scenario, you come around and you knock on this door. So that's the best case I can tell you. If for some reason you get locked out of that back gate, this door leads right to the front of the building. So are we good with that shared agreements? Is everybody yes to that? Yes. Thank you. So looks like we've got everyone settling in. So let's just take that time if we can just get present. So let's get ourselves comfortable, have your feet on the ground. And let's just take some deep breaths in together. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe in. Hold. And release. Breathe in again with me. Breathe in. And let it out with a verbal Let's do that one more time together. Breathe in. And out. Continue to do that. Breathing in. Breathing out. In a way that's comfortable for you. Each breath in, just bring back all of you, all the busyness, all the energy that you had scattered in getting here this evening. Bring all that part of you that you've left in conversations with others, your work, in the traffic, and the to-dos. All the monkey mind of things you should be doing now instead of not here for yourself. Just release those with every exhale out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And as you continue to breathe in, breathe out. Feel yourself grounded. Feel yourself supported in the chair that you're sitting in. You do not need to be anywhere but here in the next few hours. Remind yourself the sovereignty that your being has over your physical body. So with every breath in, breathe in peace. Breathe in clarity. Breathe in openness and light. Feel that come in as a wave of energy, clearing your chakras. And with each exhale, think through from the top of your head. Notice to the bottom of your feet any area that you may be holding tension or tightness in your body. Breathe in. Breathe out. Relax your head and your scalp. Relax the muscles around your eyes, your cheeks, your jaw. Breathe in, breathe out. With each exhale, Feel your muscles in your body further relax. Loosen the muscles in your neck, your shoulders. Move a little if you need to say you're safe. You don't need to be in this high alert. But you can be comfortable to receive. Feel the tension in your chest. Just relax. From your feet and your toes, your ankles, your calves and your thighs, your leg, just relax. In the state of openness, tonight I ask you to visualize and imagine whatever form of guides or higher power or your own inner higher being. Tonight, as you breathe in the energy of the earth that supports you, and the energy of the universe from above, in your spirit, if you so choose, in a manner that's comfortable to you, say yes and ask for your heart to be opened. Allow even the smallest of cracks to be in the walls that you may have built around your heart, around your aura. All the things meant to keep out things that may harm you. Ask now for the courage and the bravery and the help to let them go. Say yes to wanting to fully know who you are and who you have come here to be. To know and to open that third eye, so beyond knowing, to feel and to have it resonate the center of your heart, your heart chakra, and your power center. To know the truth of who you are. And to be willing to see what shadows may be lurking that keep you from experiencing you more fully. We are here together. Thank you, sweet souls, for creating this sacred space, for being the witness for each other, and for opening your heart to spirit. For deserving and worthy of all the infinite possibilities and abundance that this universe has to offer. And so it is, and so it will be. Amen. So go ahead and now come fully back in, come fully present. Move your limbs, open your eyes. 3, 2, 1, fully present, fully present. Well, thank you all. So we're going to do a really quick recap so everyone is back on the same page, and then we're going to really dive into the topics for this evening. So as a reminder, why are we here? As we knew from the Bonnie Ware's, the book of the top 5 regrets of the dying, there are things we don't want to end this life with these top 5 regrets of wishing we were more, had the courage to be true to ourselves, or to wish we hadn't worked so hard, and all the things that kept me the courage to express my feelings or to stay in touch with my friends. And just something as simple as, I wish I had let myself be happier. And as we know, as we've said before, those might be the denials of what we don't want to see, but as we say in Unity, to affirm. What do we do and what do we need in our lives to really, on the flip side then, honor our dreams, live our priorities, be authentic to ourselves, nurture those connections, and simply choose our happiness? So last week in Module 1, we really focused on identity. If you recall, we talked about our worldview and how we operate is really, unique. Each one of us are, as we would say, divine sparks of this infinite creator. We're all the sparks of light. And look around the room and look around the world and look how unique and diverse this creator is. And all uniqueness, divine and perfect in each way. And yet, we come to the world with an identity and our gifts and our sets, but somewhere along the way, we get operating systems instilled to us, whether that come from your family units, your national origin, your place of birth, your economic status, just all of it. There are many, many things that you then take within, and it becomes your way of being. And we talked about how that level, how you see the world, how you are operating based on all those different ways you have taken in through whether it's external or whether it's external, that's the way you're going to see the world. It actually becomes the filter with which you experience this existence, whether it's at home or how you parent or how you deal with successes or challenges. We talk about that operating system being your worldview. It's imagining, even as simple as in your family dynamics, how many of you have siblings and you can talk about that Christmas party years ago or an incident that might have been a family ordeal, and yet all of you were in the same room and you saw the same thing, and one person left traumatically, it was traumatic. And somebody else in the exact same situation said, I didn't think Dad was that bad. And somebody else, it's amazing that we all get to be and experience the same reality, but how we are with that reality is going to be determined by our own belief systems and how we filter and make meaning of what happened and what we experienced. So when we look at that operating component and systems, and this is us beginning to understand who we are, because we operate so subconsciously. There's not a moment where something happens and then you have a minute or two to call your own mini minds, and we say, how are we going? You huddle up and you say, how are we going to handle this? It doesn't happen that way. In a millisecond, you've already taken it in, and your own mind is going, this reminds me of 1972, and again in 1984, this is what this means, and then a decision is made before you even know it, and words are coming out of your mouth. You're either fighting or fleeing a situation that is already your body, your brilliant body and mind is here working in your favor to protect you in many ways, and then creating again this operating system from which you experience this world. You make meaning about what's happening in your life and around the world and things in your environment. So we talked about that. Remember, this operating system has things that are conscious and even subconscious, conscious in your mind, but also biological in your body. So the conscious aspects are your beliefs, your values, your memories, attachments, and aversions. And even though that might be your conscious, a lot of them are subconscious, right? You may not even realize it. Some of us might know, like I know very well, that I'm afraid of heights. I am. Something I'm working out. I have no idea where I got it. Well, I do remember where I got it from when I did that. Little girl and at Walt Disney at the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse. And following my older brother's sisters, and I'm running up it, fun. And then when you get to the top, you look down and you realize you're very high. And your other brothers and sisters go all the way to the top, and then they start running down. And I am on my knees grabbing the thing, and I can't move. My brother and sister get to the bottom, and there's all these kids just running around, and they realize when they turn around, they've lost the little sis. And I had a hard time coming off the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse. so I do remember just in 1 minute, fun and laughter. It's amazing how climbing up isn't a problem when you look down and you're that high. And I have problems even in steep elevators, which I learned as a young professional with a boss in Washington, D.C., and we get off the elevator, we get off at Washington, D.C.'s triple stories from the subway up. And I realize the elevator is not working and we have to get on an elevator. And I was terrified, and I had to cling to my boss, and I was a new hire. And he was like, "Are you serious?" I was trembling and in tears, and I thought, this is a great way to show that you hired the right gal for this job. So needless to say, we took cabs to the rest of our meetings. So, but interesting how you don't know when subconscious memories come up. It just happens in many ways, whether you know it or not. So neural pathways are important because as we're finding out more and more, which is beautiful, where science and spirituality and all of the psychologists and all of the sociologists, we're all beginning to get better about how this human body and mind and spirit operate. And what we do know is that neural pathways get set, and it just starts patterns to the point where you barely touch upon it, and someone says something, and all of a sudden your brain goes, oh, that's the neural pathway that you're stupid because so-and-so said you're stupid, and they said you're stupid, and it's been stupid all your life, and your ex calls you stupid. So something happens, and somebody just even has a smirk on the face. You do something, and they go, and then immediately your neural pathways go, oh, she thinks you're stupid too, right? Neural pathways get set. And what's amazing now in science is they said, guess what? You can lay new neural pathways. Now, you might start, if there's a deep trench in being unworthy, or a deep trench of being unlovable or broken or not good enough, one tiny little thread of yes, you are, takes some time for you to rethink that thread over and over and over to the point that it becomes a different option of your operating system. And then identifying what were the little paper cuts and threads that made the other one that no longer serves you so deep. And one by one, filling that trench. It is no longer what's beautiful, even our physical nature, where we say ourselves, because in unity we know our thoughts create our reality. Epigenetics in science is it's amazing. Our biology, they may say, yes, you have markers. Every woman in your family has had breast cancer. But guess what? They've actually proven now scientifically that you might have a tendency, there might be a marker, but whether or not that marker is activated or not, there is an aspect of your control in that. How many people will hear that one of your friends go in and they diagnose them with the big C and they say you have, 2 months to live, and they're gone within the 2 months, versus the one person who says, as my friend did when he was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4, and he had AIDS. And then they said, he said to the doctor, what else can they do? And they said, well, you should call your family and just make plans. And he goes, no. He said, cancer does not equal death, was his belief system. And he's alive to this day, over 20-something years later. So your belief systems, you are an active participant in this life experience. Things that have happened to you that have created your current operating system may not have been your fault, and most likely wasn't. And did you deserve it? No. But guess what? It may not have been your fault, but you are the only one who can heal it. Accept what was said about you to be your own truth, or to actually consciously say, that is not me. Never was. I can identify it. I might have willfully or subconsciously put myself into a position where I owned that label. And then once we think that about ourselves, guess what? We are powerful creators. We attract all the things that basically tell us that we're right. If I think I'm an idiot, or I'm going to never be good in a relationship, or I don't deserve to be loved, I'm going to attract all the people, all the relationships that are going to make me be correct, going to show me that my signs. So I'm not saying, so let's be compassionate. What I'm not saying, and if it's ever been said to you, what a tremendous spiritual malpractice, if things happen in your life, that it's all your fault. That's not what I'm saying. I'm here to give you hope, to say that we have a chance to be empowered. All of us were born into planet Earth in this very amazing Earth school. And on a few occasions, maybe you're one of them, you were born into the perfect family. Loving parents, supportive siblings, everything was perfect. And if you were, then, you are here to show us it's possible. But many of us were just born into families, and those families had parents who were doing their best, and their parents didn't know either. And generations have come. There's even generational sin, right? We talk about the people who were born during the 30s, and talk about a lack consciousness when you're born during a time of the Great Depression. Or people who have sense of fear if you were born during World War II and you were an adult living in that environment. Your worldview is going to be very different than the young men and women who are born today and haven't been alive long enough to know what it's like to have active war in your homeland, right? So these are the things we're going to take a look at, because we're going to look at that idea again of what happens when our operating system handles stress and you begin to feel threatened. So as I said today about quantum living, we talked about all those ways to have all those wonderful experiences, and it all comes down first and foremost with understanding what not to have. What are your ways that are keeping you from allowing yourself to choose happiness, or have those relationships that are nurtured, or allow yourself to have those dreams? Do you self-sabotage? Who are you to think you can ever have that job? You're never going to get that job. Who are you to deserve that nice house? Or are you kidding me? You think you can actually do well in another relationship? Do you see what your last couple of relationships look like? Right? So before we can actually reach, we can name it all we want, right? We remember that. You can desire something, but every time, any of you who have done your vision statements and your positive affirmations, the key is going to be, do you believe it? You know, from a biblical standpoint, it says, ask and you believe that you shall receive, and that's the key. Somewhere subconsciously, do you believe you even deserve it? Do you believe that it's even possible? So we're going to take a look at what happens, and we know that when we are in that level and things happen to us, and we did some exercises last week, a very simple one, and we'll recap that as well. But when things happen in our lives, our natural way we are wired is to go into an offensive, you'll become offensive, you're going to go the fight and flight. You're going to act out or you're going to withdraw. And it's interesting because we identified last time, and those of you who are in the intro class, that there's even a third one. What is the third one? Does anyone remember? Freeze. Yeah. And it's interesting because freeze really happens when there's something that deters you from doing one or the other. You can't get away, or you can't fight back. And then you're stuck in the freeze mode. And that's actually one of the most traumatic, your body, from a physical standpoint, one of the most traumatic situations, because that's where you get the term stuck energy, right? When something happens now, especially us ladies, there's beautiful Ron here, so it works for men too, Ron, but many of our ladies, we lost our voice, or we don't fight back, and we're put in a position where maybe somebody bigger, taller, more, or just by the nature of who society says girls are. Girls are supposed to be quiet. We're not supposed to fight. You're supposed to be, boys get in a fight and they fight over a pencil, and they're on the ground, who's going to go first on the bike, and they just express. But if a girl expresses like that, somehow society doesn't look at her as, oh, she's not being ladylike. Now, those of us who are modern women may actually say, well, that's that. I found my voice, or whatnot. But in general, just think about it. There's a viewpoint of what is even socially acceptable. Now that might be even cultural, because some cultures, they are very expressive. If anybody saw the cooking movie on Netflix called Nona's, the big Italian family, the women just start arguing with each other, and everybody sits back and says, "Let them argue. That's the way." And yet in other cultures, you'd see that and you would just go, those women are crazy. I'm afraid of that kind of interaction. So keep in mind we're all different. None of it wrong. All of it for you to identify, who am I? How do I tick? Where did it come from, okay? And then at the end of the day, as we said before, this is not a therapy. This is me facilitating for you a journey of self-exploration to be able to define for yourself, get crystal clear, how are you wired? And then just ask yourself, is it working for me? That's all. Is it working for you? So last week, the exercise we did in the book was the enemy mind awareness. And I asked all of you to take an opportunity to begin the learning process of what we deem as the co-founders of this system, Dr. Gary Simmons and his wife Jane Simmons and Dr. Rima Bonario. They've created this quantum living process, and what we're doing in the first 3 weeks, module 1, 2, and 3 of this work, is to actually learn the aspects of how to do this process. When there's something, whether it's outside of you or your own inner mean girl or guy with your own thoughts, how do you process when you are actually being triggered, whether self-imposed or something outside of you? And then we're going to actually see how past memories and past systems amplify that experience. In the Course of Miracles, one of the, I think it's really, I want to say 5 or 8. I need to get that down, but I know it's one of the top 10s. But in the Course of Miracles, it actually says, you are never upset about what you think you were upset about. That's what the Q process is all about, is to understand that what most likely happened is something or someone pushed your button. And this is an opportunity to discover what those buttons are, maybe who installed them, and then find out how to take them out so that you aren't getting them triggered all the time or walking with them. I think I shared there was a gentleman who took this class, and I just loved him. And he was, maybe for some of you, we learn our master teachers are the closest people in our lives, the people we spend the most time with. So whether that's your partner or your children or your family members or your coworkers, the people that are around you all the time will be master teachers, either blessings or lessons, right? So, but for him, and it was his mother, the classic son-mother dynamic. And he said, it just never failed. I would get in that conversation, and somewhere along the way, she would just trigger me. I think this time it's going to get better. And he hasn't done which some people will do after a while. If a relationship isn't working, we all say self-care. So for many, it may be, I'm just better off loving you from a distance, right? And for some. But he said, no, I'm really working at it. But it just, I don't know, she just gets to me. And then so the last, he was literally in this class, he was making good progress, and then he had his weekly call with his mom. And sure enough, it came to a point in time, she said something, and it just triggered him. She just triggered him. And he said, Mom, he goes, why do you always do that? Why do you always push my buttons? And she didn't even miss a beat. Her response was, because I'm the one who installed them. Right? I mean, think about the awareness in that answer, because I'm the one who installed them. So you have a lot of people who are installing buttons in us. I had a lot of people who installed buttons in me, and it was amazing to realize that they're even, active. People who are not even in my life anymore, but the buttons are still there. And unfortunately, somebody completely years later who don't even know that person, somebody outside or some situation, and what's bizarre, and you're going to find this out when we do the 21 days, is it may not have anything, truly anything, that you can outwardly see as a correlation. Does that make sense? We had somebody, when we talked about this enemy mind, and we're going to debrief a little bit to see after a week, how did it sit with you? And by watching the homework videos, was there anything that came to mind for you? But I had a woman, I told her, we talked about doing paper cuts for your example in these homeworks, because you're learning a process, and what we don't want you to do is pick a topic or a scenario that is so traumatic that it puts you right back in the trauma, because you're not going to be able to do anything but be emotionally and maybe even physically in that trauma. So we want you to talk about something that just mildly annoyed you, or maybe really kind of annoyed you, but let's try not to hit anywhere close to 8, 9s, and 10s, okay? Let's try the most to be at 7s, because remember, usually what made you mad has nothing to do with what really made you mad. So if you're already starting with a 9 or a 10, and then you do the work more deeper, it's going to probably lead to something much more deeper. So I promise you, even if you pick a 2 or 3, it will probably lead you to a root cause a little deeper. Does that make sense? So I had a woman who said, okay, this is simple, I'll do my one, and I hate it when cars zip by. Do you know what I mean? And cut me off on the highway. And she wasn't quite the road rage, but she says, I've been known to do the yelling in my car when cars speed on the highway. So she thought that was going to be a simple one, and she at least identified it, learned how to say what her feelings were about it. And then I actually told her, keep in mind that what you identify as an external trigger, which we're going to learn about, can then be the same The same incident can be used for 3 different worksheets, which you'll learn about later. We'll talk about how an external thing, and then an external trigger is your reaction. It's about you. How were you in that moment? And then, so you might have had a fight with somebody, and justifiably they did something stupid, but it was your reaction that escalated the situation. And now nobody's even talking about what happened. Now you're fighting with your friend because I can't believe the way you talk to me, kind of thing. And all of a sudden now it's on you. And you aren't even happy with how you responded, type thing. So we're going to look at that, whether that's the trigger. But it was really interesting because from doing the work, what was just a car speeding by really led to a completely different thing about her ultimate feeling of being unsafe. And it led to issues or things in the past that really made her feel unsafe. So even in the moment, her reaction might be anger, but really what it is you're driving and something goes by you and it shocks you and you're scared. And then when she actually said, what is that feeling that I get? And she'll say, well, I was angry, but really was that the feeling that you had? If you really identified the purity of your feeling in that moment, and it was being not in control, something outside of her, feeling unsafe, and then it just went deeper, and then we were all done, we were all from a car passing you fast, and then she was able to deal with that ongoing feeling of that fear that is always with her, the fear of dying. And does that make sense? So we're going to find the little things that might be working for you, but it starts with us figuring out, becoming emotionally aware with this enemy mind. And the aspect of it is, and this is what we talk in spiritual communities, is we know that our energy, we always want to be high vibe, and often I get accused of being Pollyanna and all this other things, but it's important that we just own our feelings. I'm not saying to spiritually bypass. Something might happen, you might really know that you've got a coworker whose mom is in hospice and there's all this stuff going on, and then they're short with you when you ask for something, and it's very easy to see, oh, let's have compassion for that person. We know what's really going on, and it's okay. If I'm in a place where I'm really in a good place, I can just see that. Like, that's totally not how that person would normally respond. I can have compassion, and I understand up here what was happening. But if words were said or things were done, even if they exploded, and you don't process the pain that person actually did to you, even if it was not deserving, if there was just no even acknowledgement that, God, that really hurt my feelings, or that was not necessary, whether or not you have to say it to them, but it's saying it to yourself, that, ooh, that was a little painful, and then doing whatever you need to do to soothe that wound. That's what we want to be careful of. In the spiritual community, you have all these lovely people who are hemorrhaging from paper cuts or stabbed here and there, and you just go, oh, God bless you, I forgive you, but you're just wounded. And guess what? The other person feels good because 20 minutes later or the next week, they call you and they say, I'm really sorry, it was a really bad day. And you said, I know. But your inner being, you may not have ever really dealt with how really unjust and ugly and unfair that interaction was. Does that make sense? So if you're not taking care of yourself, then who will? We have to teach people how to treat us, right? But if we don't even treat ourselves well, and I've learned that from all the beautiful speakers we bring here. Garland Landreth was one. He was in the movie The Secret. And we've had him here several times as a speaker, and he works with you to identify same thing. He does a very similar type, different model of shadow work. But it was amazing because he was ready for the story. I had a long story. He goes, yeah, you know what? I know you, Elaine. We worked for years. I'm going to just cut to the chase because it's been a long day and I've seen tons of people and I know you're ready for this. He goes, that's just a story. It's not your mom. It's not your dad. It's you. you are your own worst enemy. And then just so bluntly, I was like, what? And I wanted the story. I wanted somebody to feel bad for me. And I da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was really funny because I said, and I feel like I've done everything. I feel like I've taken every class. Are you guys serial class takers? I've done all the work. I've done all the things. And so what's beautiful is I love that Spiritual Life Center and other New Thoughts and many psychologists are really teaching us that it's about giving you the tools to be more empowered and just be aware. And it does start with being okay to feel. It is us becoming friends with that yin and yang of us, of our uncomfortable feelings, identifying when we have unpleasant sensations. How many of you get sick to your stomach or actually get physical migraines or just you actually have a biological reaction to stress or anger or whatever that type of fear of if there's some type of confrontation. And probably the worst as we talk about mental illness nowadays is the monkey mind and being tortured by replaying something over and over again in our minds. So for your homework, we had two videos. One was understanding trauma, and the other was the role of your body in consciousness. How many people actually did get to? We actually watched video 3 last time before we left. It was a very short 7 minutes. But then there was one about the role of your body in consciousness. So did most people get to see it? Or a few? Were there any comments about those? And then I will just show a tiny bit here to go over what one of their topics was. Can you get the sound on this one?
And our meaning making, how we're perceiving the world, what we're making it mean is connected to this. And the effects of this can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, behavioral, relational. All these dynamics come into play when there is unresolved trauma from our childhood. And again, I want to say, even if you look at your child and you go, well, there wasn't any great, huge trauma that went on. Being told you're stupid, by someone you respect and admire and love at a young age can be very traumatic. And we don't realize how much we're carrying. And two people can have the very same experience. And
that was the first one. And then here is
so we want to
talking about the trauma in your body.
Take a look at the role of the body in this process and see how it's impacting it. First thing is the brain. We have 3 parts of the brain, the triune brain, 3 distinct parts, which account for the way that we process and respond to information. The oldest is called the reptilian brain, or the lizard brain, and it deals with instincts and muscle memory and survival. Now, when a baby reptile is born, it's fully developed and it's capable of moving, and it does so very quickly, because if it doesn't, there's a danger that mom or dad will eat it. See? Whereas the limbic brain, or the mammalian brain, deals with feeling, emotions, memory. It's where the fight or flight originates. And mammals, on the other hand, are born requiring much more care than reptiles. Their survival, in fact, rests on their relationship with the primary caregiver.
And we won't go through all of that. So that's just a little snippet if you didn't get a chance to watch those, and I will resend. That was in video links in your first week of homework. But my question was going to be, I just want to check in. I'm going to have a mic, and maybe I'll get help from Lucas, who's our AV tech today, to do a little bit of running around. Or actually, I see that Miss Shayla is going to be the runner today for the video, for the recording. We aren't live streaming, but there were a couple of people who called in sick today, and so I'm just going to be recording and being able to send them so that they can continue with us next Wednesday. Next Wednesday is right before the Mystic Cafe, which will be happening on Friday. So they will be practicing the musicians here on Wednesday night. So we're actually going to be in a different location, so I won't be filming. We'll be here on site. So and so we'll probably be more classroom style next door. But any thoughts about just last week's Enemy Mind exercise or just videos? I just wanted to see how, now it's been a week. How about you, Tammy? Go ahead.
So in the part about what was that? Like a parent or something and the interaction. When I was born in Spain and we had a nanny or a housekeeper, and she was like my primary care person. And then we moved when I was about 2.5, and that person was gone out of my life.
So your primary care was there for you, and as a 2.5-year-old, your primary care person just
My
went
mother
MIA.
is very a distant person, always with all of us children, and so that was something that's like, wow, okay.
And how have you ever really thought about that before? Is that something that comes to mind often, or is this part of one of those where
You know
you're
what?
becoming aware of it?
It just brought it more to the surface because it has passed into my thoughts
More than
here and
once?
there, and I thought, but not really. Oh, that's really impactful.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone else? Anything for the videos or just the exercise last week? Some of the things that I reminded those, if you weren't here for us from last week, was it was amazing how you might have talked about something recently, but by writing it down and then speaking it, we did it in partners to someone else. It was like you were reliving it again. That's how you know it's active still. Versus there are some things you can talk about and actually have no resonating energy around it. Does that make sense? Naomi.
So I talked about and wrote about getting fired a couple years ago, and I mostly feel fine about it. My life has changed in really good ways as a result of that experience, and it the whole experience kind of made me think about like, why didn't I recognize this stuff for myself? Like, because they did me a favor. It was a really bad environment that I was in, but why didn't I go like, what am I doing? And like, why did I stay here? But then over the past week, and I think that actually you saw, I kind of posted about it, Elaine, and you, but that being fired brought up all these feelings about my little sister, who I don't have a relationship with, her choice, and I do respect that, but and I also am really sad about it. So something that I was like, okay, like this is, so I knew when I wrote about the getting let go that would bring up other stuff. I just didn't know it was going to be that thing.
Yeah.
So it was interesting just when you were talking about like the recap, like the thing that we think we're upset about. That is me every single day of my life. Like if which is really challenging with kids, raising kids. And so I have to like always remind myself of that. Like, okay, I'm upset and I don't have to identify why. I should focus on just that I'm upset and not try to identify why in this moment, because it's never what I think it is. So, and I have to check with you later, but I couldn't find the video. And I forgot to reach out to you about it. So
No worries. I'll make sure you get
so I didn't get a chance to watch those. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, and it came as a constant contact email, and you just click on the links. But I'll make sure in the next email that I include both the links or re-forward the other one if you missed it. Anyone else's comments from last week? Anyone? Yeah. So one of the things, if you haven't watched it, or I did want to emphasize, when they talked about the trauma or things held in body, one of the things she mentioned was that, the fight or flight is being able to express it, to run away from it, protect yourself from it, or to fight back in that case so it doesn't become stuck energy. That it just brought to mind for me that there are a lot of folks, again, that just don't know how to handle emotions. and we either stuff them or we're told. And I just love it that nowadays there's whole movies like Inside Out and everything for our children to identify it. I mean, it's actually pretty much part not only mindfulness, but actually having kids identify how do you feel, what are you feeling? And they've got pictures. Are you mad? Are you sad? Because they want you to be in touch. And if there's a book I would recommend, if you haven't, I think this is the last one at the Hub, but our board and our staff have read this. It's called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. It's a paradigm shifter. And chapter 3 is all about just really understanding how to be with our emotions. And I didn't know this in this book, that emotions have primary emotions that are just like primary colors. So there's only, I think 5 primary colors. I'm not an artist, so those of you correct me, but I think you might know yellow and red. And basically, primary colors simply mean that there's 5 colors, and if you can make all the others by a combination of those. And so in this book, it identified the 6 primary emotions. And every other emotion is a little bit of all those put together. And I love that it says, as we know, we like to deem in society, or maybe for your own self, again, your belief system, that having emotions, whether it's angry or sad or depressed or anxious, that it's bad or good, right? But the reality is that emotions are information systems for you. And I love that this book identified, and just let this resonate again, that your emotions are just a way to tell you something needs to be done. So even if you don't even acknowledge it and you can't express it, or you can't get yourself away from it so you're not having that energy in you, then you're running away from it or suppressing it is actually not taking advantage of what it's trying to tell you. So oftentimes, then something will happen again, maybe a different context to make you angry again. And after a while, it's interesting if you met a really angry person who's always angry, or someone who's always negative, or always this and that, or really depressed. I found this as very telling in this book about what the different things tell you. So I love this. Anger. Anger tells you that something is not or is no longer of service, that something is not aligned and must be changed or destroyed, that something more beneficial can replace it. So when you get angry at somebody, it's very likely that a boundary got crossed or something was done that needs to be changed. So rather than be angry, angry should tell you, I'm angry, but what's more important? That's saying, have you identified what needs to be destroyed or changed or aligned? So, and I think about it, I go, no, I just get angry. And my answer is, they have to change, right? They made me angry. So, or that behavior needs to change, or that, but imagine just that. Get angry, then having a reframe of what is this telling me? What needs to be changed, or what needs to be realigned, or even destroyed? I mean, we can talk about not liking circumstances and where our anger goes. Fear. Fear is a form that involves something is not being faced. Fear is the body's way of saying, wake up. Fear says that there's something important that needs to be known. Something important that needs to be known. It says, like a pedestrian who comes to a curve and feels a wave of fear run through his body as he sees an oncoming car run a red light. Leaders who lack access to this fear are dangerous because they don't adequately sense danger and are often living in the denial of reality. So fear is a good thing. If you actually can say, why am I afraid? Maybe this is not a safe place to be. And then I think some of you guys know the daredevils who are fearless and you just think something's missing, right? Like the evil Knievels of the world. Sadness. is one of the top three. Sadness tells a person that something needs to be let go of, said goodbye to, or moved on from. Sadness is the energy of loss. Something once meaningful is going away. Makes sense, right? Why am I sad? Joy. And this is interesting because I always thought you just have joy and you just have joy, or some people have a hard time being in joy. But this tells that something needs to be celebrated, appreciated, laughed at, and someone needs to be patted on the back. Countless leaders failed to create a culture of celebration and appreciation, and so they're cut off for their joy. They just succeed and achieve and achieve. And corporations and families and type A people achieve and get promotions, but how many of you know a lot of people who have no joy? So it was like, joy. So, sexual feelings, I can leave it up to that, but they actually said sexual feelings is the energy of creativity. Anyone who writes a song, anyone who does a painting, it's the act when you feel, as my friend would say, if you feel frisky and you feel that like yumminess and you feel alive, you are actually the closest to the divine. Sexual energy is what you feel. All the channelers, Abraham Hicks and all those who channel directly, they will talk about when they step aside and they feel the energy of source comes through them, it's yummy. They are on fire. They're just like it's the best energy because it's creative energy. So if you aren't creating or you're not feeling that, but when you are, recognize that you're in that energy of creativity and creation. Sit down, and when you get that energy, write something, create something, reach out, journal, dream. Because if you're in that frisky moment, just on a physical level, people on a frisky moment end up with an entire human being created. But just as that on your own, you can create, that is your purest manifestation point. Whatever you need to do to get in your body, embodied feeling, you are in the highest point of manifestation. So love on yourself, people, and feel it, because that's part of you getting to really understand how you operate in this world. So those are easy: anger, fear, sadness, joy, sexual feelings, and all of the other feelings created from those. That's pretty crazy, isn't that? So we're going to look at how today, we'll take a little bit of a quickie break. It's 8 o'clock if you just do a stretch, but we are going to go into tonight the faux feelings and beliefs. I want to talk about the differentiating. We're going to look at some pages in your workbooks, but just take a quick break. Don't go too far away because we've got a lot to cover, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. All right, coming back from break. Okay, so we're going to go into the exercise that goes along with understanding the difference between feelings, thoughts, and faux feelings. So as we talked about at the first part, how do we get to this point if we already know and that we've got all these little triggers happening and half of the things are subconscious and we don't even have an opportunity to consciously even control our initial reaction in the time, in that moment, split second, when your body is designed and programmed to keep you safe, whether it's real or not. And then that videos, they even talked about that many of us are on this constant level of threat in this world, and we are constantly on that level of anxiousness. How many commercials are talking about, stomach problems or anxiety or all the different antidepressants and all the different things because you just turn on the news and there's things to be afraid about. Turn on the news and there's things to be angry about. All the different things. And unfortunately, our bodies don't know the difference about potential threat. They just go immediate into life endangering. And in the video, they were really clear about saying it doesn't have to be life and death. It can be life dulling or just all the ways that take away from you. Your body doesn't differentiate. So what happens is that physically, to be able to get you ready to fight or flee, all those different things biologically happen. You reserve all the energy so you can go into fight mode or all the energy to flee. And so everything shuts down. Your digestive system, your sympathetic to be able to heal your body. That's why we have a lot of people who have autoimmune disease is rampant here in the United States. It's because we are on this constant area of shock, everything, even our words, this is killing me, or we actually even use our words, and so our body is like, oh, that person is killing me, and here they come, they're coming towards me, and I'm in that physical reality of fight and flight, sick to my stomach, tears, uncontrollable tears, or in fear, and all that. So we've got to really get to the point of listening and knowing our bodies and understanding emotions as being something that we need to listen to. But one of the things that we really tend to do is how many people have heard the terminology before faux feelings or fake feeling, like faux fur, right? Is that something that is familiar? Well, I want to direct you in your workbook to, I believe, now hopefully you all have the same version of this workbook, but I believe that if you go to pages at 7, I'm going to take a look at yours. Yeah, 7. Does 7 tell you about the heading that's just a one-page narrative of all the different feelings, faux feelings, et cetera? Page 7, is that correct? 10? Okay, I'm going to look at it. I don't have a workbook here, so I'm going to just borrow it. Okay, there you go. Page 7, where it's just the narrative about feeling thoughts and faux feelings. So I just want to make sure you know I'm going to speak through it, and then I will have you go to page 10 and 11 in a minute. But let's just talk about this concept of faux feelings. So whenever here's the dead ringer. If you ever use the words that, or it feels like, or I feel that you're not respecting me. I feel like you take me for granted. It's a dead ringer that if you say, I feel that, or I feel like, that you're not really talking about how you feel. You are telling a story or a judgment about what's happening to you. This is super important for those of you who got my first workbook, my first email about Module 1. I spoke to this as being the one aha moment that took me all the way through my first time I went through quantum living. And I went through it as a staff. The full staff had to go through this in 2017. And then I immediately did it again for certification. But the entire time, when I'm just talking about what happened to me, Dr. Rima Bonario, who's a psychologist and therapist, she would go, Elaine, so you keep saying, I feel that. She goes, those are faux feelings. Tell me how you feel. Well, I feel that. And it took me forever to realize that I don't speak in feelings. I can tell you what happened. And so for me to make it through these exercises, it was very frustrating. And I tend to be like this type A. I want to be an A+ student. I want to do it right. Just show me the pattern. I'm going to get it right. And it was I spent the first 6 weeks of my first Q certification very frustrated. Half of my worksheets were about how frustrated I am with this class. Type of a deal, and how, well, that's not, you make these wide assumptions, and that's not me. So when I talk about resistance, I'm the only image I can tell you is that even if you have a seed, you let a seed be planted, then I want you to imagine a sidewalk of cement, 4 inches deep, and then you see that tiny little blade of grass break through the cement. The fact that you're in this class, you are that blade of grass that can get through that 6 inches of cement if you're willing to just keep at this, because it's growing and you're going to nurture it. So let's do this exercise together. I'd like you to turn, you can look at that narrative, but that's basically telling you that there are these things called faux feelings, and they aren't, in fact, what you think they are. On page 10, you'll see faux feelings or thought feelings. That's the way they are talking about it in this book. It's just, again, this is one tool. That doesn't mean it's the only, but it says faux feelings on page 10 imply that someone is doing something to you and often connote wrongness or blame. When they are used, they are often preceded by the phrase, I feel. And the table below lists these faux feelings in the left-hand column. The middle column suggests the feelings the speaker may be experiencing when using a faux feeling word. And the third column suggests the needs that the speaker that are not being met. So for the next couple of minutes, this is what I'd like you to do. For those of you who did the enemy mind exercise last week, you can either use that as when you were in that enemy mind situation, were there any faux feelings that you would circle? Or if you'd like to take it more general, which is what I did, I kind of thought, in my childhood, how did I feel? In my career, how did I feel? In my relationships, in my family structure. So I thought about when I describe my life or when I'm angry or upset in general by people or things or scenarios. Remember, we talked about enemy mind. Doesn't have to be a person. It could be a circumstance. It could be you're aging. It could be you're unemployed. It could be your balance in your checkbook account, kind of a deal. But what are some feelings that you would use as things that make you uncomfortable, that are kind of repetitive or active for you right now? So take a moment and just either circle or put an asterisk or a star of, just like we identified shadows that might be active, go ahead and identify for yourself what are some faux feelings that you have at some point in time felt or are recurring, and just mark it or circle it. The next step I'm going to let me have you do that, and then just let me know when you get through the chance of going through those 2 pages, 9 and 10, that you've gotten that far. I am going to tell you the next 2 steps because some of you will go faster than others. The next step that I want you to do is first, just circle them. Don't put thought into it, just go boom, 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 boom. And if it starts to look like you've circled more than not, I think I circled like 87% of every word on these 2 pages the first time I did it. So don't feel bad about that. The next step I want you to do is, after you've circled or starred or identified the faux feelings that you feel pretty regularly, is then I want you to look at column number 2 and then think of the circumstance that you're thinking of that made you feel that way. And then no more than 2, I want you to actually circle 1, no more than 2, of the underlying feelings you truly are having about that word. So if there's ever, I'll use the top one as an example. If you've ever at any moment in time or regularly feel abandoned is not a feeling, then you need to identify when you feel that or you're triggered by being abandoned, or you think in a situation you felt abandoned, then you need to say, were you terrified, hurt, bewildered, sad, frightened, or lonely? Does that make sense? I want you to get to the feeling that you actually had. I'll let you go do those 2 things, and then I'll check in with you in a couple of minutes. And you don't have to finish all of them. If you've gone through, let me make sure you just get through the first page, just so you have an understanding of kind of how the process works. Has everybody gone through at least the first page, page 10? Yeah. And you've been able to identify. If you keep going, that's fine. But so I want you to then, just for yourself, take a second and identify if there's common themes of the actual feelings of the faux feelings? Just note that for yourself. Are there common themes? If you have time, you can still work through the second page if you want. I'm going to just see if there's only just one or two people. Is there anyone willing to share your experience with this written exercise? Was it a surprise? Was there common themes? We got Brandy up front here.
So I went through is the mic on?
Oh, hold on. Go ahead.
Oh, there it is. So I went through the process and I found myself selecting to circle the emotion that I wanted to be feeling. At the end, I wrote down, I'm resistant to circling angry or anxious. I don't want to feel those things. So I went back and I underlined every feeling that I had, or every faux feeling I had identified that had an underlying feeling of angry or anxious, and those just run right through it. So that was a really interesting experience to come up against that resistance.
Yeah, you didn't want to be angry,
I don't want to be angry or anxious, but
but then you were like, every faux feeling shows you really are angry.
yeah.
And resistant, exactly. Anyone else insight for you? Right up here, Shay, Zazu.
I looked at, or I wrote down 8 faux feelings, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are angry. And I didn't realize that I'm angry.
Yes. And you can't change or even begin to identify what needs to be changed, what needs to be destroyed, but if we don't even get to be in touch with our emotions, right? Because I'm the same way. Mine was sad and lonely, and I was this young vice president, a go-getter. Everybody thought I was on top of the world, and when it came down to it, I was a sad and lonely, hurt little girl. And that I don't want to identify as being sad and lonely and hurt, right?
I don't want to be angry.
Yeah. So let's get to that. Let's dig and become aware of what we're really feeling. Fantastic. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Great. Well, we'll get to the next part of it, but I give you this tool because when you do your worksheet, this is homework for you. Go back and see. I didn't ask you to look at how you described your enemy mind. I just said describe it. But you might want to go back to see in your written format, did you describe a true feeling or did you use faux feelings to describe that situation? And then in our exercises, we are going to be learning the process, why every time not getting stuck in the story, but what's the incident, what's the triggering moment in a brief description, and then it's going to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how triggered were you? Because we want you to be self-aware if you're tackling the tiger. Go pick up a kitten to work with you on this exercise, and then it's going to ask you, how did it make you feel? For me, I had the faux feelings out of the book, and I copied them so I could have them, and I could look for the faux feeling because it was easier for me to describe everything as my interpretation of what was happening. And then I did, so I used to just write how I felt, and then I would check and go on parentheses on top of my words, oh, well, I was, I felt criticized, and I went, well, what is criticized? Or something. I felt rejected. Well, I guess, was I hurt, scared, angry, defiant? And it might not be one of those words, but find the true word. If you know you are describing a situation with faux feelings, find the word, the real feeling, okay? So that's going to help us move through. We're kind of giving you, it'll all make sense when we get down to the worksheets, but we're kind of giving you how to actually fill and complete that process. And then it'll become just so easy. You'll get to know yourself, and you'll get to embrace yourself. And Zazu, it'll be okay if you're angry. There's nothing bad about being angry, and it'll be okay to have those feelings. Half of this is to dispel the shame of us being human beings and being in this human experience. There's no shame. The shame is that we are made to feel a shame about feeling emotions that are meant to just be information to be empowered to do something different in our lives. So we're back to that fulfilling your potential. So I wanted to share, you weren't part of the original video for the class. People will notice I got emails that the email I sent out said, and video 3 and 4 are the following videos, 3, 4, 5, and they wrote, I didn't get video 1 and 2. Well, video 1 was the introduction to quantum living, and because we now teach this course so that there's enough time to share as 2 hours instead of an hour and a half, I actually covered what video 1 did as in a video format where Jane talked about this not being therapy and everything else. And then video 2 was the video I'm going to show you that was attached to encourage people to take the intro class, Who Have You Come Here to Be? And it's that comment of, are you the one? Because we've just talked about all these ways that we feel and all the ways that we certainly don't feel the one, right? So I want to share with you this. So there isn't a video 1 or 2 that you need, but here's the video I referred to. So you were actually born to be the one. Nobody was born and thought, as a little kid, sat there in their crib or sat there in their daydreaming underneath the grass under a tree and said, when I grow up, I want to be codependent and anxious. You know, we didn't name all these things that you now are circling on your faux feeling pages. I want to be abandoned. I want to be invisible. None of us said any of those things, and we weren't. We were perfect, whole, complete, and still are. Still are, but we have experienced situations that made us feel hurt, angry, sad, all those things, and that child did not get what he or she needed in that moment. And thus, the button, the pain, is still within. Does that make sense? So on that third column of your faux feeling list, it says what you needed. And I want you to really look through that. So if that they're so powerful, because if we didn't get it from outside of ourselves, we certainly needed it. You know, if you've ever felt pressured, and the question was, did you feel anxious, resentful, or overwhelmed? What did you need? You needed relaxation, clarity, space, just to be considered, just consideration. I'm busy right now, and you keep giving me more than I can handle. This is a perfect roadmap for us to say, remember, we have to teach other people how we deserve to be treated. So this is a wonderful tool that when someone or a situation makes you feel like, or this makes me feel that, you can identify what you're feeling, and more importantly, you know, and just own that. Just care for yourself, self-care for yourself. If you that you feel sad, then have a piece of chocolate. It's there. Call your best friend. Get a hug from somebody. Commiserate and speak it. I wish Patty was here. I'm going to say if she had a hard day. She had something happen today, and then she looked at me and she said, don't say it, and it is spiritual malpractice for any Q coach to tell you, well, you know you need to do a worksheet. That is just a no-no. You will never hear me ever tell you to do a worksheet. Once you know what you can do, but that's totally up to you. I'm not going to tell you what you have to do. But it was so funny because she just goes, I'm just angry, and I'm so proud of Patty Peters to actually sit there. And I said, bingo. Say it loudly, own it. You are angry. Gold star. Do you know what I mean? Because what happened, it's not in her body. She's not saying yes, and then tomorrow she has cancer, or she has anxiety, or she has, tension. Because she identified something and she let it out, and she was true to her feelings. But now that's the step of saying, what's the authentic action? What do you get to? And if you needed to be heard and you needed to have other people, and we laugh because we say silly things in the office like, do you need to have the band of girls? Who is it, and can we kick their tail? And, we say ridiculous stuff, but just to let the person just know, we see you. Remember, I talked about trauma as being something that happens without an empathetic witness. If something happens, you don't have somebody to empathize with you. It's amazing what just having someone. That is the beauty and the healing of our chaplaincy program. To have a total stranger sit and hold sacred space. To let you say what's happening that needs to be held in sacredness and held in its highest good. And for you to be seen and heard. Whether it's your greatest joy or your deepest sorrow. Because remember, joy needs to be accessed and celebrated. I have been the person with the high income and the salary and the promotion alone by myself in my apartment on Christmas. Because I couldn't go home and I had another conference the next day. There is no joy. Joy needs to be celebrated. Do you know what I mean? So even the good and the bad, we are made to reflect and mirror and amplify the good and to hold. It's very biblical. We can bear each other's burdens, right? The yoke is light when we share it, one or the other. Not fix it, not anything else, none of the codependent stuff. It's just saying, I see you. And I actually can see what I know about you. You got this. You got this. And we can do that. So remember, that all comes down to really simple roots, just like in your words that you've identified for yourself. A lot of story, but it comes down to hurt, anger, sadness, lonely. It's core things. And for us, it came back from some sort of separation of needing love and protection, and somehow in our life story, not having it. If we didn't get that love, then we're not okay and we're not good enough. If we didn't get the protection, we weren't safe and life is against me. We became separate and not the one, and then we needed to control. We needed to control to make sure that I am safe. I needed to control so life wouldn't be against me. I'm going to be separate because you all aren't safe. People aren't safe. They hurt you. And we don't get this viewpoint of coming into the world to be the ones that we're waiting for, to be the peacemakers, to be the love in this world, to be the light, to simply be the channel of this creativity, this yumminess, this joy, this magic, that we are all little bits of stardust in these human suits. Right? So what happens when we sometimes experience this? Does this sound 4 words? You saw all those faux feelings, all these emotions. Here's the human condition. We don't feel good enough. We're unworthy, we're powerless, and we're inadequate. We can add unlovable, we're broken, we're misfits. You know, we've seen it in your cue card, in your shadow. So tonight, there's several of you that were at our introduction and may have done it. How many people have already done at least the first run of their cue cards and their shadow cards? I think most of the people here. So I'm going to explain it. And we're going to do this as a way, just in short, so that you can actually just have a little bit of time for those who are doing it for the first time, and then those who have done it, just to really look at it and see, is it still resonate? Because a week or two, you're a little bit different. So this is going to be in your workbook. Somebody shout out that page that starts with, thank you, 15, on page 15. So on page 15, you're going to see the shadow card awareness exercise. And I'm sorry, page 12. You see the 12 and 13. You see the shadow card awareness exercise. And those of you who have done it before, you can just see if it resonates, or if just through the process of us hearing each other's cue cards that we heard, if you're a part of the orientation course, or intro course that we did as a Wednesday night, Who Did We Come Here to Be? But I want you so that when we come back next third class on Module 3 next week, we are going to go around and do that same exercise. Be prepared that we will read through our cue cards and our shadow qualities and our noble qualities. So those of you this is the first time, you're looking at page 12 and 13. Now that you've actually seen that process of being reflective of some of the things and experiences you had that might have been associated with those faux feelings, I want you to take a moment to look at the boxes on those 2 pages and just click on those. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time, but same kind of thing, same very similar exercise. Just check the boxes that seem to be things you feel about yourself, or that are whether think through triggering moments, your family, your work life, your children, just how you are with friends. Are there any active feelings that come up for you. And when you're doing that, you'll notice that they gave you categories if it's helpful, like under the category of love or ability, self-worth, safety, making a difference. And you'll notice on the bottom of the second page, there is an other. So there, your word may not be there. Just add it. Just add it. If there's a feeling that you know you have that's not on any of those categories, it's okay. Just put it on there. So check the boxes that you resonate with you at your core, and then what you'll notice is I want you to narrow it down if you can, that for the sake of this class, for the top 6 or even 7 if you need to add one more, but try to keep your top 6 choices, because that's what we're going to be working with. The ones that are most active, not like once in a while I feel this way, but what you think is most active. And you're going to fill in those 2 line items. You'll notice that in every one of the boxes, they'll have words that are in lowercase, like under the word simple, under love, the very first example is I am unlovable. That's the limiting belief. And then all caps in parentheses is the shadow quality. So sometimes it's that easy. I am unlovable. The shadow quality is unlovable. Sometimes the words are different. So just take a moment to do that, to complete those boxes and identify for yourself your shadow qualities. I'm just going to give you a few minutes to do that. That shouldn't take that long. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand and I'll come by. So as you are identifying your top 6 or 7 boxes that you've checked, you see the arrows on this slide that shows transferring them to that grid on that page 12. And so when that grid should be filled out with the limiting belief, as in this example, and then the shadow quality. And tonight, for those of you who have done the cue card before and the shadow card before, take a look at your faux feelings that you circled and see if any of those might have a strong resonance to perhaps change a limiting belief in a shadow quality for you or add to it. Okay. Don't feel pressured. If you're still working on it, you'll have a chance to complete that. I do want to just make sure, because I say it all the time, I never want to leave people in the land of faux feelings and shadow. So I want to make sure that you know you can spend the next 7 days to look at that, feel good about it. You'll see that once you fill out that grid and you feel comfortable with the 6 words or the shadows that you'd like to work with in this class, there'll be a page that has both the shadows and the cue qualities, and it says, "This is who I am not, but a sense of." And you would just transfer the words you have in your shadow qualities onto your shadow card. So in this case, that's what it would look like. And as a reminder, what is our proof whenever we feel this way? Whenever you know you're in enemy territory, what is it? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good, whether it's physical or in your mind or emotionally. And that's what life is against. Life is against you when you are not being who you've come here to be. So before we leave tonight, I'm gonna explain to you the other half of that coin. And I want you to actually look at that shadow quality and again, the word is compassion. I want you to love yourself for who you are and where you are. This is your chance to just own that you are a little angry person or a little sad person. And maybe no one has ever taken care of that. If you are angry, I highly recommend you get one of those punching balls or whatever, or go somewhere and let it out. Or get in touch with it. Like, figure out what it is. Why am I angry? Or what is it that needs to be released? Because if it's stuck here psychologically or subconsciously, it may very well be within you on a DNA level, at a cellular level. Or at the very least programmed, where subconsciously there's a edge. So who knows? It might show up as passive aggressive, right? A lot of times people who aren't outwardly angry just end up being really passive aggressive people, you know? And then it's just a different form of handling your anger, you know? But tonight, we get to realize now's our time. We can become aware of these things going on that seem to control us, that seem to be things that it's just life. It's who I am. I can't change. And the reality is you can once you become aware and you don't like it. So we need to reclaim this power and create a life that we want, that we actually came here to live. So we're going to bring this light into this shadow, and we're going to love this shadow because it is the only you have. And guess what? You are perfectly, magnificently, no one in the world can do you like you. No one. You are perfectly you, and no one else is better at it. No one. So you are already, guess what? Number one. For those of you who need to be number one, every one of us are number one. Nobody can do me better than me. Even in my worst day, nobody can be me, right? So just know it. You're already winners. We just got to get all through this gunk that keeps us from shining and being able to be that. So, who did you come here to be? I'm going to just make sure you understand the exercise so you can finish it and bring it back and have your cue card, because we are going to debrief when we come back and then have an opportunity to speak like we did before. So you can own and say it with pride that these are the two sides of me, who I have not come here to be, but how I show up, and who I really have come here to be, and I'm owning. So on your cue card on that page, and it's page 14, it's going to ask you very simple in the first column, name your heroes, whether it's a person alive, your grandmother, fictional, Superman, Wonder Woman, political people, authors, you name it, anyone who inspires you, and then identify their qualities. And in your book, there's a page, if you turn to it, it's called Q qualities, and it has all these wonderful words like they're generous, they're funny. So you might get a little help by looking at those words to help you describe why do you really like this person. And then take a moment to circle if there's repeating things like I really like funny people, or I really like people of faith, or I really like people who are resilient, or just visionary or intelligent, Just what just floats your boat when you just see this person and you just like, yeah, I want to be like this person, or this person changes the world, and I really appreciate them. So I wanted you to take that exercise, identify those heroes, those inspiring individuals, and their wonderful qualities that they bring in the world, and then also identify your top 6 or 7 qualities and write them on the cue card on that same page, such as that. So that is your homework, should you choose to accept it. And what you're going to do next week, and we'll do our cue card check-in, and I will repeat that at the beginning of the next class, is you're going to be, we'll take this time just one-on-one and going to one person one-on-one, and then you don't have to tell the story, you just say the words, please have compassion for me when I am being, and you name your shadow, because this is who I've come here to be, and you name your cue. And I know in the book it's upside down, so I apologize, but I'll have some cue cards for you next week if you have a little card to carry. So, and then we'll do that check-in. So that's really this evening's topic, and our biggest issue that we talked about was really the feelings. And so I hope tonight we had that opportunity to touch base about those feelings. The homework you're going to have is a couple more videos about unmet needs in the mirror. These videos are really important. So again, I will send a repeat of the first module to those who identified on the worksheet they didn't get it. And I will also send you these. And they're short. There's one a little bit longer, so 3 minutes, 6 minutes. So this is probably the longest video sets. 3 little videos, 4 minutes, so about 20 minutes of videos. You don't have to do them all at once. And then I will give you a little bit more direction on that. So I'm going to end this evening, as I always do, on a video for you tonight that just talks a little bit of, I'll close it and pull it up. We talked about getting to really embrace our feelings tonight, and I felt that this video by Sarah Bareilles, called Brave, for those of you who may know it, fits perfectly for our class tonight.
You can be amazing, turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast, to be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way the words do when they settle near your skin. Kept on the inside and no sunlight. Sometimes a shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you wanna say and let the words fall out.
And thank you for being here tonight. So that is my heart's desire, for you to be brave, to just lean into this work, just speak your truth. If it scares you, to share, just trust in the process and let us all be part of your healing. So have a fantastic week. There's always an offering basket back there if you'd like to support this ministry. If you don't have anything today, though, it'll be out there all week long, every time we meet. So thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next week. Blessings. Yes, leave your tent cards. We will put them out for you again, so you don't have to worry about missing them. So you can have it. Thank you so much.